Welcome to another episode of the Virginia Investor Podcast. Today's episode is about raising capital to include a creative 99-year land lease deal, building partnerships and teams, pivoting through failure, giving back, and making an impact. We are here with Rob Long, a former investment banker, current owner of River City Roll, Bar West, and a new dating app, venture-backed, called Surf Dating, which we'll get into later. I'm excited to get into that. This is going to be a really exciting episode. I'm excited to learn more about you, Rob. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
I want to start with your upbringing. Where did you grow up? What's childhood like for you?
Yeah, I grew up here in Richmond, Virginia. Two younger sisters. My dad's from Richmond. My mom's from Martinsville, Virginia, so all Virginia-based family. And loved sports, loved being around people, which I think kind of ultimately led me to where I am now. Ended up leaving here, going to University of Virginia, and then kind of lived around the country, which I'm glad I got out of Richmond for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that helped shape my perspective as opposed to never having leaving.
Right. What does your parents do for a living?
Yeah, so my dad is a financial advisor,
Okay.
and my mom did some marketing stuff, and then kind of was a traditional kind of stay-at-home mom once the kids kind of got cramped on sports. But, you know, she was the soccer coach and the team mom, very involved with all the kids' activities. But
did you grow up thinking about entrepreneurship and investments and stuff like that, or was it just kind of like have fun, get through school, get good grades, play sports, and then go to college?
Short answer, no. I think, and now that I've, been lucky to have a platform to talk to some kids that were in the seat I was in, is I had a very narrow mindset. My dad was a financial advisor, a very, kind of basic's the wrong word, but like a kind of run-of-the-mill profession that like I always thought I was like, I'm going to go be a doctor, a lawyer, or in finance.
Right.
And growing up, it was always, my dad was an athlete, and it was always like, if you're getting good grades and performing in sports, then, social things, like curfew was later, like you got a little more leash. So, kind of was always ingrained from him, like if you perform in the arena, like good things happen.
Right.
Which I think has been helpful, like with my mindset moving forward. But he never steered me to, hey, I want you to come work with dad. And, it's funny now, my younger sister actually does work with my dad. She was a teacher. Now she's a financial advisor. I'm working with him, but he never really steered me into sort of any sort of path.
Right. Just be a good kid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just
It was
stay out
like,
of trouble.
it was like, hey, work hard, perform, be a good teammate. I think was like another thing that was like really ingrained in me young. And I try to strive to do that with my kids now, where it's, you don't have to be the best on the team.
Right.
Performance on the field is like, if you're a good teammate, supportive of your friends, show up, accountable, like all of those things, I think were some of the biggest lessons that he instilled on me that came from sports.
That's interesting. I have young kids too, and one is like starting to get into sports, and that's exactly what I'm trying to tell him is like, I don't care if he goes and kicks the ball or hits the ball the way he should at this age, right? That's not what I'm focused on. I want him, like if he wins a little running drill, or even if he doesn't win, he's got to like congratulate his teammates and give them a high five when they're finished. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So that's awesome. That's cool. Let me ask this. In high school, were you focused on UVA? Did you know that was like your goal, or was it just like get good grades again and then get to the end and then see what college
honestly,
you go to?
that is like where my mom was like super like helpful, because my dad was Hall of Fame football player at Hampton-Sydney, at D3 college.
Awesome.
And I was a good enough high school athlete to have D3 opportunities to play
Football
and lacrosse.
Awesome.
And I'd always thought I'm going to use sports to get me into the best academic institution I can get into. So there was like a moment in time where I thought I was going to either be at Washington and Lee or Hampton-Sydney playing sports. Mm-hmm. I was lucky enough to get into UVA, and my mom was smart enough. I went to St. Christopher's here in Richmond, and my mom was smart enough and knew me well enough as a person, also knew that I was never going to be a professional athlete, and that sports were going to end for me the minute I graduated college, to steer me away from it. Knew I loved it, but also knew that like there was a bigger world out there than the almost the exact path my dad took, St. Chris to Hampton-Sydney, football to Richmond.
Right.
And it was one of like the more pivotal moments of my life, choosing to not be a D3 athlete and to go be a student at a bigger school.
What did that conversation look like? I mean, was
Dude,
it
it
a
was
single
hard.
conversation that you remember?
No. I mean, during my quote-unquote recruiting process, like the closest opportunity I had was Columbia for football. Their coach then got fired, probably for recruiting guys like me. And I remember like my mom making a joke, back then, this was a long time ago, like on the call, like, you're not going to Columbia up in a big city up north. Like, my son's not doing that, like, kind of joking with the coach. And I was like, Mom, if I get into an Ivy League school, like, I'm going. Right. I didn't. So then it was like, hey, let's look at these other opportunities. They were all kind of liberal arts colleges, great schools. Tons of my best friends went to Hampton City, incredible place. And, my mom was kind of always like, hey, you don't love summer workouts. You don't love two-a-days. You enjoy being around lots of people. You enjoy parties and social activities and kind of bigger kind of things. And, my dad never pressured me to go to Hampton Sydney either, but I always was just kind of like, man, how fun would it be for him to see me do that? And he goes to every game still, right? As a Hall of Famer there. Every Saturday, my whole life, I was going to Hampton City football games. Right. I never went to a UVA game. Right. I never grew up a UVA fan. I was a Hampton Sydney fan because of my dad. And I was always kind of nervous.
Loyal
fans.
Like, I know a handful of them, and they are like,
man. And like, you go to that school, it's like Hampton City, VMI, WNL, some of these smaller Virginia schools, you go there, their alumni take care of you. You graduate, you have opportunities. Yeah. So like, I always knew, like, man, it's not an easy button, but like, I know what my life will look like if I go play football at Hampton Sydney.
Right.
And it's a good life. And my mom, because I was kind of always saw the other side, like, well, hey, there's all this other stuff out here.
Right.
And there's all these places you haven't really been yet that you can get exposed to. Now, sure, it's UVA. People are probably rolling their eyes like, yeah, it's 50 miles away, dude. It's not like I was going to UCLA or like UT in Texas or something. But still, like, it was a much kind of bigger institution, and it was definitely the right decision for me.
Yeah, especially compared to like a Hampton City. Like if you go to UVA, that's a different world than the other expectation. And it's funny you're talking about Hampton City football, because now I'm thinking about all the people I know that either played there, that did play there, but sometime in the past decade or numerous decades that are still like they like go nuts over Hampton City.
Tiger Ball, dude.
Yeah,
it's a real thing.
Yeah, it is.
I'm still a huge fan. My best friend from high school went and played football at Hampton City, and that was another tough thing, right? Like, I was like, man, my dad went here. My best buddy's going to play here. Yeah. The difference is my best buddy was going to start from day one. Yeah. I was maybe not going to play until my senior year. Right. So it was like, am I really going to grind it out in Farmville for 3 years on the football team to maybe play my senior year? I wasn't that good of an athlete.
Right. I also think about those people that played, and they're good people.
Great.
And they're outstanding people to be around.
No, and I think like that's the power of sports. Yeah. And I'm a huge believer in that. And I coach high school lacrosse at Freeman here locally now. I've been doing it for the last 10 years. It's like my mental health space. I consider something kind of like my community give back too. But I think about it when I'm hiring. I know when I was going through my investment banking stuff coming out of college, like the power of athletics and being a good teammate and learning how to take criticism and feedback and implement it in your day-to-day life and care about more than yourself, especially today, is huge.
Yeah.
Like, I can't scream enough about sports for youth. It's so important.
And you straight up lose.
Yes, you got to learn to lose, dude.
You get the experience of just straight up losing.
Life's a lot of losing. Life's a lot of losing.
Right.
And it's so hard as a parent because you want your kid to win and you want to coddle them and you want to make it easy for them. But dude, life's hard. They need to learn how to lose.
Right.
I think sports is the safest space to learn how to lose.
100%. Yeah, that's awesome. And Freeman is a great program.
Yeah,
that's a solid program. The girls and the boys team. I think I worked with a buddy of mine to kind of do some teamwork building with the girls program, the girls varsity program, a year or two ago. But that's a solid program.
Yeah, they've got a lot of state titles. We're still chasing our first one. What they've done is so impressive, and knock on wood, not to jinx it here today, but I think this might be our year.
Yeah, awesome. Sweet, man. So what was the pool for UVA specifically?
One, just the quality of the school. Also financially, State University being in state, it's like massive. I value Richmond a lot and the connections I have here, the family, the friends, and I don't think I ever would have been happy going to school in Texas or California or somewhere far away. So that the regional location was huge for me. Obviously, like the national prowess of the school, like we're lucky to have a university like UVA here.
Right.
But it's funny, like a lot of people like want to go because they were huge UVA football fans or basketball fans, and it was like it's funny you get there, and I didn't really know a ton about UVA football stars and basketball stars from like the past, but ended up having a ton of friends that were athletes. I played club lacrosse at UVA because I just like being on a team, and that was like the perfect fit for Rob Long. It was like I got the team stuff, but we were self-coached, we were good. Our UVA club lacrosse team probably could have beaten 80% of D3 programs because you had a lot of guys, way better players than me, that could have played D3 but wanted to go to a big school. You also had a lot of guys that played a year at UVA and then were never going to play, so they stopped.
Right.
But they didn't want to put the stick down.
Right.
So we had like insane dudes on that team.
That's
we
awesome.
win a club national championship my last year, which is like hilarious to say, but it was like so fun. And now a lot of those teams we were playing against have varsity programs. Like that was when Ohio State never had a varsity, and some of these Big Ten schools, like big Ten schools, had like just a club program. So it was fun to play against those dudes, and now see them like, those are top ranked teams in the country.
Yeah,
now.
that's awesome. And so you get to go have that college experience, and you still have that awesome community around you, and keep to play, continue to play sports. What were you studying? Did you have ambitions? Like when you hit college, were you like, this is what I want to do after college, or were you just general studies and figure it out?
Yeah, dude, I was like, it's St. Chris into UVA. You have this, you see a lot of people doing things like I said, doctor, lawyer, finance. So I wasn't smart enough to get into the comm school. So I was an econ major, which was like so general. And in terms of like tactical classwork, I don't think I really maximized my time at UVA, if I'm being honest. There was so much more at that school if I had been a little more focused. Like I admittedly was not a great student. ADD, dyslexic, schooling was like tough for me. Which, I was going to touch on when we get into my investment banking career, because like I was just bad at it. Like the actual like numbers of it, I was horrible. It was like, I see 450 million, I can check it 5 times. It's really supposed to be 540 million. But my dyslexia is like, I would make so many careless errors.
That's a rough career to have.
Dude, oh my God. And, but now looking, I was like, dude, with AI now, I'd been great at it. Because like I'm an interpersonal guy. Like my EQ is way better than my IQ.
Right.
But no, I went to UVA. I didn't have a plan. I kind of just waited to see what happened. One of my best friends from growing up got a job with the Spurs, and I had graduated UVA without a job offer. And I was like, I'll move to San Antonio with you. That sounds fun. And I'll just find a job down there. And I got a job for 1 year selling mutual funds for the Capital Group, massive money manager. I didn't even appreciate it. That was one of those ones where it's a product my dad uses a lot of. Right. So like, I was like the young guy in there, and people were like, wait, we just hired a fresh college grad. It's like, that's never happened here. And I covered Oklahoma, which was like invaluable for me, because I was selling, mutual funds to financial advisors in Oklahoma where I knew no one. I had no connections. I had nothing.
Right.
So like, it was just like trial by fire.
Right.
Like just learn how to win, and like on the phone all day, literally. It was like quotas. Rob, you have to make 50 calls today, and you have to call 100 Edward Jones offices this month. And it was like, it was tough, but I learned so much.
Right.
And then through that, I ended up getting hired by BB&T Capital Markets, and moved back to the East Coast. And that's when like my investment banking career started.
Where was that on the East Coast?
Charlotte.
Okay. So still not back to Richmond yet?
No. That was Charlotte and Boston. That got me through 2017. I had a 5-year, I did this thing called a leadership development program there, which is pretty funny because I was going to the investment bank. That program's all about commercial banking, which I didn't know was going to end up being super valuable for me, because I didn't know I was going to go into this entrepreneurial world where I was going to then be talking to commercial bankers looking for financing.
Right.
So I went through this rigorous banking program in Winston-Salem, like a 9-month, like basically everyone in the program besides 2 other guys were getting trained to go be commercial lenders for BB&T around the country.
Oh, okay.
The head of the debt capital markets, who this will all tie together later, was a guy named Bill Hardy. He got ALS, and that was what spurred me. I'm going to get there in a second. But he saw the value in me getting to know all these bankers in the network around the country, because a lot of the debt deals we were doing were coming from these big corporate relationships around the country. Mm-hmm. So he was like, Rob, you need to go be you and befriend all these bankers, because it's going to deal source a ton of stuff for us down the road. Right. So it was like really fun. It was like kind of like a MBA experience, except we're straight up in a classroom with, I think there's like 60 of us, basically all the same age, with like pretty light coursework, getting paid in Winston. It was like really, really fun.
Yeah,
but I also was learning so much about how risk and credit looks at stuff.
Interesting.
Guarantees, all these things that I didn't know was coming to me in like 5 years.
Right.
So that was like a very valuable kind of training program. And then I got placed in Charlotte on the debt capital markets team.
What time frame is this?
This was 2012. So like my 3rd year out of college.
But you went into banking pretty much during the financial crisis.
Just after.
So now you're kind of, the world is working its way outside of that.
Exactly.
And then you're in investment banking now, and you get to learn all about now commercial banking. And you're getting paid.
Well, what's hilarious was like, I knew I was going into investment banking for large corporate bond deals. Like I knew where I was going, like into the debt capital markets world. And we were doing like, $500 million to $1 billion deals. Most of it was a co-manager role of like investment grade credits of like, South Carolina Electric and Gas, where it was like super vanilla bond deals. But all of my training was on like small corporate lending.
Right.
Which, like, thank God, because, I was a banker's worst nightmare once I quit and was going out to look for a deal.
Right.
For the bank side of finance, which we'll probably get to, because I was like, dude, I just did all this.
Right.
I know the playbook.
Yeah. So you knew exactly how they operated, what they're looking for.
I know what you're looking for.
Right.
And you're also not going to BS me on certain stuff.
Interesting.
So it was like, ended up being like so valuable. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
It was just like one of those things where I got lucky.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
You mentioned you were bad at investment banking, which I assume you're probably being humble, but also like your personality and your ability to connect with people or build relationships probably made you very good at it. If your mentor kind of took you under his wing and said, hey, I'm going to put you in this position, or I'm going to encourage you to do this.
Yeah, the beauty is that I had a lot of leash because our team was really small. The problem was I was so young and green that I just didn't have the actual like tactical skills to be good at the interpersonal stuff. So it was like I could go on these client trips and I could, perform really, really well face-to-face with clients. The problem is like I wasn't quick enough with the numbers and like, debt ratios and leverage and all this just stuff where like my boss was 50. He was a rainmaker.
Right.
He moved so fast. He didn't have time. He's like, just figure it out, dude.
Right.
Which I figured out a lot, but like, dude, I would have been a killer now with AI. Cause like, you don't have to think like that anymore. Yeah. It's just like, dude, I would spend weeks on these presentations where this math is just hard for me. And it was just like, I had to triple check everything because I was like, I'm dyslexic. So like that part was tough. Well, now like, I'd probably be great at as an investment banker now because, Claude can do it all for you. But
yeah, that's interesting. One of our mutual friends, like I'll talk to him about some investment opportunity or the numbers behind it. And like, I'm over here like trying to work it all out and and he's just like, okay, if this interest over 15 years, well, no, if we do 7 years of this interest, it's just all up here. And he's like, because he's done it a million times. Exactly. He's seen all the numbers over and over and over again at, different prices, similar prices, interest rates, everything. And
it's like, oh, this credit rating, this coupon, this maturity, it's this.
Yeah.
And it's like,
just spits it all out.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's funny because like my old managing director ended up investing in River City Roll because he knew that he was like, this is you.
That's awesome.
Like, you're going to be good at this. And I think like my last probably 6 months of working at BB&T Capital Markets, now Truist, it was probably the longest days I was clocking on the trading floor. Mm-hmm. And 90% of that was all prepping for River City Roll. It was not
really
my day job. No,
okay,
no.
So you're getting towards the end of your investment banking career. What sparked that?
Yeah, so my buddy William Hardy, who I moved to San Antonio with, the basketball coach, who's now the head coach of the Utah Jazz. His dad was the head of the debt capital markets desk at BB&T Capital Markets. Incredible person, brilliant mind. My trajectory at the bank was kind of limitless with him at the helm. And then he got sick with ALS. And some things happened along that really tough time for him that really kind of put me off to the corporate world.
Right.
I was already unhappy. I was in a role that I wasn't really thriving, but kind of the personal thing of seeing like not just your boss, but your one of your second type dad type role. Some of the way that stuff was handled, I didn't love, and I was like, looking back on it now, we launched the Will Hardy Foundation to raise money for ALS, and I was telling this story at our launch 3 years ago. I was like, that was really the push I needed to go be the Rob Long I am now. Right. So that was really like the last real catalyst to, okay, it's time to do something different.
It sounds like obviously a very important and integral relationship that was making this experience more fun for you was now less impactful because of the ALS diagnosis. And then you saw what the corporate world was like without that relationship in place, which is incredible when you think about like the power of a leader, right? Like culturally, and what a leader can do to impact so many different people if they're a good leader, or the impact a bad culture or a bad leader can make to someone's career trajectory, So like you had this awesome leader and mentor who was kind of looking out for you and showing you the way and providing this great experience and opportunities. And then when he had to deal with ALS, you now don't get to deal with him as much as a leader, and the culture probably changes, and now you're dealing with other people that it's just not as fun.
Big time. And it was like one thing that Bill was extremely good at seeing was he knew I didn't have the technical acumen yet, but he knew some of my other strengths, and he was always the one who was like, dude, this stuff will come to you. I know it's frustrating. I know you like to win. I know you like to feel like you're performing. Like, dude, it's okay. The bond math will come to you one day.
Right.
Like, you have skills we can't teach you. And that was one of the things that has been really impactful for me now as other people's bosses is that you got to see the board a little bit down the road. Mm-hmm. And just because someone has like a technical skill, obviously that's all, dude, the world's changed so much, which is wild. A lot of the stuff that like really turned me off to corporate America, now I look back, it's like everything's changed. It was like, I got roasted in that training program because I wouldn't cut my hair and they didn't like the way I dressed and I had one button too low on my shirt. And like, dude, they straight up in that program were like blue suit, red tie, white shirt, brown shoes, brown belt, silver watch, like straight up imprinted materials. And I'm like, dude, F this. I'm wearing like no tie, button down, hair long, and they were docking my bonus, but I was just like a little bit of a rebel of that. I was like, dude, whatever, take the $5K off my bonus. Like, I'm not cutting my hair, bro. I didn't love the structure of corporate America where just because someone was older and been there a long time meant that they were right.
Right.
The world has changed so much now where like you can work from home. You don't have to wear that suit anymore. Like, I bet the people on the trading floor now are wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and that just wasn't the case when I was coming through it. And I think younger people now are getting empowered a lot more than they were back then, where if you had a good idea, nowadays, if you have a good idea, you can go do it.
Yep.
And if the place where you're at isn't supporting you to do it, screw them. Go do it yourself. Right. Because there's never been an easier time in history for good ideas to at least have a chance at succeeding.
That's a great point. And obviously, like, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I dropped out of college and I went to hang out with a different group of people, I'll say, for a while that were kind of forging me into who I was. But they would always say, it's not what you look like, it's what you fight like.
Yep.
And then as I go on to be in more professional careers, I see that like some of the wealthiest and most successful people I know are jeans and a t-shirt. And I think even one of the sharks on Shark Tank, Robert, even said like, watch out for the guys in the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, watch out for those guys. And I don't think that was the case a couple decades ago, but I think now it's just more acceptable that like, yes, you need to be professional. Yes, you need to present yourself well. But I really think it's what's the impact you can make and what deals are you making happen? What people are you connecting? What are your relationships versus like, do you have the 3-piece suit on?
Yep. No, 100%. I think the relationship piece is the most important piece. Mm-hmm. And I think that I was very fortunate to have the upbringing, to have the ability to go to St. Christopher's, to have the ability to go to UVA, to meet, some of the mentors I have now, and to get the job I got in investment banking. While I wasn't that great at it, I learned a lot. I got pretty numb to leverage, which has become really important. Because I was doing these massive bond deals, and I'm just like, dude, whatever, debt. Like, I'm so immune to debt, it's crazy. My wife hates it.
Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. My wife's a partner at Hunton here locally. She's a corporate attorney, and couldn't be more different when it comes to that. But also, some of that stuff does matter when you're raising money, and when you're trying to get people to trust you. I did check a lot of boxes. Now, do I think if I hadn't checked those boxes, I probably still could have gotten it done? But it made it a lot easier to say, oh, I'm going to bet on Rob Long.
Right.
Rob Long went to UVA. Rob Long was an investment banker for 5 years. Like, you just say that, which is part of the reason why I hate it, because it was like, you don't know. Like, on paper, sure, I show pretty well. But if you actually like went and talked to my boss, you'd be like, dude, Rob was kind of a schlub analyst. Like, good dude, love him, fun. But investment banker is like not him.
It's interesting because I know a handful, probably about five people in my network that used to be investment bankers. And I don't know if they were really good or bad at it, but they're very successful now. And I think it really did help them in their resume of like just being able to make it to that level and be trusted at that level to do certain transactions or deals or to be a part of those says a lot, whether you're good or bad. Like,
oh yeah, man. And you see a lot of stuff, right? And back then, it's crazy to say back then, but the world's moving so fast now. 5 years ago, seems like a long, long time ago. And this was 10, 15 years ago. You didn't have some of the technological tools to see deals and see what deals looked like. So you kind of had to be in the game to get access to that information. Right. I had a Bloomberg terminal. I had a lot of stuff that I could learn from and at my fingertips. Yeah. And it made a lot of the prep when I knew I was going to leave. That was like one of those things where it was like, I knew I wasn't happy where I was, but I also didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was like, and I was talking to some mentors, and I was like, I've always wanted a bar. But you look at the stats, it's like a lot of bars fail. Like bar rescues are there's a TV show for a reason. Yeah. You got a lot of clowns that are just like, I'm going to open a bar. And historically bad business. And I had a mentor tell me, had invested in a deal in Atlanta, Painted Pin, which is a very similar concept to River City Roll. And was like, hey, this gets like to scratch the bar itch, but when you add the third revenue stream of bowling, the business starts to get good. Right. So then I was like, So I started doing some research, and that's where being at an investment bank, having a Bloomberg and all this stuff, like I could get my hands on some things. So I would spend a lot of nights like researching, calling some of these folks. Another lucky break, like a guy who owned the bowling alley in Nashville went to UVA, was willing to get on the phone with me.
Awesome.
Shockingly, the biggest manufacturer of bowling equipment in the world is in Richmond, AMF, right out in Ashland. And one of my mentors, probably my biggest mentor, is from the AMF family, right? That did all that. I had all the data points, and then it was like, all right, we're going to open a bowling alley. AMF has this like cool little heat map of like where lanes per population is low, and like where lanes are quote unquote needed.
Right.
Shockingly, there was no bowling alley in the city of Richmond. It was like beating red on the heat map, like. I had just moved into the Cookie Factory lofts when I moved back from Boston.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
So like I get back from Boston, Richmond has changed so much for the better.
Yeah, what time period is this?
This was 2017.
So that's
2016.
Right, in my opinion, I know there's developers out there that say it happened sooner. In my opinion, it was like right when Hardywood broke the red tape on like the whole drinking scene and brewery scene in Richmond, which is like 2014, 2015. Yep. Like then things started happening in Scott's Addition.
Then Vail starts getting cool. Then you have the apartments coming, you have Reservoir, you have all this cool stuff happening. Yep. And then, I'd moved back, wasn't super excited about it at first. And then I was like, whoa, things look really different.
Yeah.
And it was still early stages of Scott's Addition, like you're saying. Cookie Factory was sweet. I loved it. And I was like, man, all right, now we just got to figure out where we're going to put River City Roll. And I'm walking with my buddy from the Cookie Factory to Fat Dragon. We walk out of the back of the Cookie Factory. It's this overgrown, shitty parking lot. And there's like this kind of dusty for lease sign on this old building. And I'm like, like, okay, this could work. And it was one of those lucky breaks where I get back to the trading floor and I'm talking about, I was like, anybody knows like Taylor Benson guy or Rebke? And a dude on the trading floor was like, yeah, dude, Benson's like one of my boys. I was like, can you like connect us? So I go to him and it was this guy Hampton Bargatz. He was really good friends with Henry Shield downstairs, and Henry kind of like did some prep for me. He's like one of my bigger mentors, and was like, "Yeah, dude, meet with Benson." And I was like, "Hey, I have this idea, and I think this location's perfect." And obviously, Rebke guys are really good at what they do, and Rob Hargett, like I really, really respect. Rob Hargett's a deal maker and tough, and like everyone's like, you better be on your game, right, dude, because this guy knows what he's doing. And I was like, I want this property and I want to build a bowling alley here. And Benson was like, I was like, I'm going to quit my job and do this. And I had raised no money. I had loosely put the deck together.
Right.
And Benson was like, dude, I don't know, man. Like he was so nervous for me, and like I love him every day for it, because he was like really worried about it. Yeah. And I was like, no, dude, I'm gonna get this done. Right. And like I just had this like blind faith. This one worked out, but it was a risky move. And I remember my parents being like I said, I checked all these boxes, right? It was like I had a good job, like on paper.
Right.
And it's like, wait, you're going to quit your good job to open a bowling alley? Because if you say it like that, it's like, what? But I had this vision. It wasn't just going to be a bowling alley.
Everything you just explained shows you're obviously willing to take some risk. Was it just because you didn't have a whole lot to lose?
Exactly.
Like if you lost your job, you just didn't get another one.
So it's like timing is everything.
Correct.
And at that moment, I was single and 28 years old.
The perfect time.
So like if I fell on my face, I was going to let some people down that backed me, but I could go get a banking job anywhere.
Right.
And it could like go back to that.
Right.
So it was like I talked to a few people. I was like, all right, I need a few chips to fall for this to work, right? So I needed a little bit of cash to like do drawings and stuff.
Because you couldn't get it. I mean, yeah.
Dude, I had no money.
Yeah. So your capital position right now, I assume, is like you're probably good enough to live, but you're not like just stacked with capital, right?
No.
So
I was like a 28-year-old dude making rent, but like I was spending every incremental dollar on dumb stuff.
Right, of course.
Going out, a new golf club or some new Nikes. But like, I wasn't like, I've never been, I mean, my wife would tell you I'm like, can be fiscally irresponsible, but it was always just like, I just was like, well, I mean, if I'm just going to keep making more, like, you know, I'm like, let's live it and like have some fun. And and I never had a plan where I was like, okay, I'm going to save $50,000 over the next 3 years at BB&T so that I can then go just do this. I was like, no, I'm just going to do this and figure that part out.
Because it'll never be a good time to go do it.
And like, and that's the problem with these quote unquote good jobs too. And like the whole golden handcuffs thing's really real. I was making a good living. Don't get me wrong, but I hadn't gotten to the point there where I was making money that was hard to walk away from.
Right.
And every incremental year, you start making a little more, and the opportunity cost of taking a risk just goes up. And you get a little later in life. Like now, you know, wife, 2 kids, third on the way next week.
Really hard to
It'd be really freaking hard to quit the job. But then it didn't. And it was like, I was like, all right, I need to get my hands on like 50 grand to do like, you know, the initial prep, you know, some loose drawings, you know, whatever. And so I kind of cobbled that together from some friends and family. And, you know, back then, like I had like no clue on how these type of deals are structured.
Right.
I hadn't done any of this
Were you
stuff.
under contract on this property, like under LOI or anything like that?
So we got it
at this time, or were you just doing drawings?
No.
Anyway?
I saw it. I had a buddy who was in working for an architecture firm, and I was like, we were sitting at Insu Boca, and I was like, let's just start talking about it. And he drew it, and that original picture of River City Roll is framed in my son's bathroom. That's awesome. And that he did with colored pencils. And it's actually pretty crazy how like eerie similar to now. And he nailed it. Gordon just absolutely nailed it, because like my biggest compliment on that building is that a lot of people think it's always been there, and then it wasn't new construction. And like we just nailed that part of it. And so I was like, man, I got this pretty picture. So then it was like, all right, he was working at Price Simpson Harvey then. I was like, all right, well, let's take the next step. And that's when we needed to have some real money. And like, let's price this thing out, see how much it costs. Luckily, you know, Henry kind of saved the day. We had kind of started going down a path with a different builder. And we're getting some things priced out. And I was so green. I didn't know anything about this. And luckily, Henry came in and looked at it and was like, but we got to do something different here. And that's when he helped put me in touch with Commonwealth Construction Management. And that's when things became really real. And it was like, okay, Henry believes in this idea a little bit. His team can execute the actual construction of it. We feel pretty comfortable about the number. The number's $6 million now. So we're like, okay. We kind of have all the inputs now to like figure out like what the plan is. So it was like, all right, we need to get $6 million.
Is that for acquisition and build out?
That's basically just the construction of River City Roll.
Got it.
And a couple year runway of like OpEx.
Yeah.
And so then it was like, okay, obviously we don't have enough money to buy this land from Rebke. So back then they didn't really have plans for this dirt yet, and kind of caught a lucky break with this land lease. And I bet if we asked Target like live right now, like if there was one deal that like he might have lost, it might have been this one, because we locked in a really lengthy land lease. It wasn't 99 years, but it was 50.
Okay.
And at a pretty good number. Now, granted, that was 2017, right? So like Scott Station wasn't, it was probably like second inning. I still think Scott Station's like sixth inning now, but it was still pretty early. And it was like, all right, well, this is additive to the neighborhood. It's an amenity right by my apartment building that I have. I don't really have a real plan for it. There's some like overgrown parking lot and sheds. And all right. But it was also like, I don't think he thought I was going to get it done. Right. So it was like, if you raise the money, here's the deal. Right. LOI, you got, I can't remember how much time. It was a pretty lengthy time. Now, like, that shit's getting gobbled up so fast. Right. I was lucky, again, timing's everything.
That's perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Yeah. And we were on the right side of the boulevard because everyone was focused on the other side. And we got a lot more acres than we could have on the other side. And it was literally my backyard. So I was so confident in the location. And then it was like, okay, this is when like the commercial banking school comes really handy. It's like, all right, how do we split this up? And I was like, all right, let's just go 3 and 3. Let's keep this super clean. I'm going to go raise $3 million and we'll borrow 3 from the bank. It's pretty funny. So then I don't think I'd raised a penny when I quit. And that's when Benson was like, dude, you're insane. Like, dude, this deal isn't real until you have the money. You don't have the money. You're quitting your job. And my parents were like, what? And I talked to a few people. I quit. And then I had Matt Goodwin is like my biggest mentor in life, and in my work life, and in actually both lives, but personally and work. But he was like, Bud, I believe in you, but you've never run a restaurant. You need to find a partner that has some food and beverage experience, and then I think this is really real.
Right.
So, luckily, again, another connection at work knew my now partner Ben Eubanks, who had gone to the Culinary Institute and run Lehman Brothers Corporate Kitchen in New York and had run the restaurants at the Jefferson Hotel.
Interesting.
He had kind of left the food world and now working at a really cool company, Res, in Scott's Addition, but had a wealth of knowledge. And I was like, hey, dude, like, I'm going to throw you a little bit of this company. You want to come onto this thing and help me? He was like, dude, it sounds really fun. And so then it was like, all right, we got the team. And that's when, my first strategy was like, okay, I need a yes. I need a big yes. And luckily Matt was the yes. Yeah. And was like, I believe in you, Bud. And, I'm going to come in at this. It's like, okay, well, now we're off to the races a little bit. And then I was like, okay, let's just put a bunch of dudes and ladies in a room and give them some beers and get everybody kind of excited about this because we know we have one yes plug and just kind of see like what momentum can do. I think momentum is the most powerful force on earth. It's not close. And we had a little bit of momentum going. So it was like we got that back room at Ardent and got a bunch of beers and brought everyone in. Had like a 10-slide presentation.
It's like friends, family, or professional relationships?
Yeah, like both. All like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was pretty much a friends and family race. Yeah. And we knew we had a slug coming in at, terms that were kind of set. So then it was like, let's just start clipping off like some 100s, some 200s, some 50s, and just start whacking away at this thing. And we got a really good traction that first night. So then things kind of started to roll. And then it was like, all right, well, now the bank conversations are going to get a little bit easier because we got real money. Because at that time, I had spent every penny I had on some of these drawings. And my assets, I go back and look at that personal financial statement from when I'm the only personal guarantor on that note, which is nuts. It would never happen today. No. And I can get into that because it didn't happen at Cocodrillo. Right. I had a Jeep that was paid off but worth $1,800. I had a flat screen TV. It was probably my next most valuable thing besides like my bed and stuff from like that my parents had given me, like my grandparents' furniture.
Do you still have student loans?
No, I was lucky enough. My parents got me through college. I didn't have any debt, which was nice. Good. So my balance sheet was clean. It just wasn't very deep. It was essentially nothing. Right. And it was funny. The BB&T regional president back then was like, when they all knew I was leaving, we're like, hey, let's talk about equipment financing and your loan and all this stuff. And I was like, let's all be real here. Yeah. I just went through your banking school. You are not touching this credit. Right. And if you do, it's going to be horrible terms for me. So, sorry, no, we're going with a local bank. Like, we're going with a small bank, community bank. Because BB&T got too big by then. Yeah. And, I'm trying to think back of how I got to Essex. It's funny. I played golf yesterday in the Richmond Biz Sense event with our banker, Greg Tripp from Essex Now United. Incredible dude. He saw the vision. And it's also a lot easier to borrow money when you have investors like we were able to cobble together that made it really real. Because it was like, hey, look, we're looking for 50-50 here. This isn't crazy leverage. This is like, and here's all the local players that have invested that Right. That helped us a lot.
But what's the collateral? Building equipment?
It was Rob's personal guarantee, which was essentially we don't want Rob to quit and throw us the keys, right? Yeah. We want to hold his feet to the fire, and then the building. So, that structure, like the land lease building structure in Richmond, is not as prevalent as other cities, but that is a structure that happens all over the place. We kind of looked at the Topgolf. Topgolf was kind of going off like a little bit before we did, and I had some visibility into how that was structured, and those locations are being done on those because it made your startup cost a lot less because you don't have to buy the dirt. And so that's why we went with that. But we had this awesome building in an up-and-coming neighborhood. It's 25,000 feet. So what we did when we were selling it both to the bank and to the investors was, hey, look, we think River City Roll is going to work. But if River City Roll doesn't work, we have a 25,000 square foot box in the hottest neighborhood where we can flip this thing into creative office space, or we could knock it down. And I think there's some handcuffs if I look back at the lease now, and like because Rebke at the time, like I'm pretty sure we can't build. I'm actually 100% sure we can't just go. Oh, we're gonna be multifamily now and just go vertical, right? Because Rebke didn't want us to do that.
Yeah. You more or less had full control of the land, more or less, with some restraints, but like had full control of the land, but not ownership.
Yeah.
And so the benefit was you don't have to have this massive acquisition cost on top of the build-out cost, on top of the operating expenses.
Exactly.
And so were you able to come up with the land lease idea, or was it all this like network that you put together?
So I had seen Topgolf do it.
Okay.
And also raising the $3 million, we were lucky; it went fast. But if I tried to raise $8 million, it might not have gone fast. And to buy it, we would have had to raise a lot more.
Yeah.
So this was like the quickest path to get where we wanted to get. And at that moment in time, I wasn't really thinking bigger than River City Roll. So like I didn't really care. Yeah. I just want to get it open.
Yeah.
You know, looking back on it, would it have been smarter to buy it? For sure. But
easy to say now.
Yeah. But all the benefits of like owning it in terms of financing, we kind of got access to, right? Because we own the building.
Right.
We just don't own what's under us. So like in the bank's terms, like we got basically like the same value of collateral,
right,
which was really helpful. But we don't own it. But we just have control of it for another, I don't know, it was our 8th year anniversary this past Saturday. So we have like another, 32 years or something, or 42, whatever the math is. Like I said, I'm not good at math on the fly, but we have good control.
And it sounds, you have a killer team that you're working with on this. I mean, obviously, like, just with some of the people that you mentioned and some of the what I know about them, like you have a monster team on this thing with a ton of probably good advice and experience where it kind of helps steer you in the right direction, make sure you're not falling in holes and things.
No, I mean, it's so freaking lucky to have the mentors I have. Like you take Henry, who is a killer in the construction space and understands all these deals. You take Matt, who has an incredible experience with hospitality amongst Jefferson Hotel, Sea Pines, all these amazing places. And I'm getting access to that guidance. And then you bring in Eubanks, who has lived this stuff. And then because of him, we got our chef, Brad, who was a sous chef at Le Maire, who we were able to convince to come to a bowling alley and see the vision. And that was the biggest coup ever. Because, dude, he could go be a Michelin star chef if we wanted to. And he's a killer. And, like, things just started kind of lining up for good.
It's been so freaking awesome to see River City. I mean, because places come and go in Scott's Addition all the time. But, like, River City Roll, it's just such a staple. It's made itself such a staple, and I know that I've been there a million times. There's all kinds of professional networking events there. People go there just for fun outside of networking events all the time. There's live bands. There's all kinds of activities. And then we brought our team there for numerous events. Like even before we went to like baseball games to the Diamond, like team events, we'll go by River City Roll and have some drinks and or dinner or whatever, and then head off to the baseball stadium. It's just an awesome location, an awesome venue, a great place to be. And it's pretty cool to hear the story behind it, that it was just some kid that just quit his job and was like, hey, this parking lot looks cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was hilarious. Like, I remember my mom thought it was such a horrible idea. And then we were lucky enough to get some pretty good coverage from the RTD, and I think we were on the front page of the paper. And then, as soon as you see your kid get a little bit of press, we hadn't made a penny. We hadn't built the building.
Right.
She thought it was the greatest idea ever because, like, people were excited about it. And we've been really fortunate to have the run we have, but it's taken a lot of work and it hadn't been easy. We got whacked with a few things like COVID is in the middle of all this.
Oh, yeah. Couldn't imagine.
And, the business of, entertainment is kind of that arena, like what they call it now. Yeah. But any real food and bev is not for the faint of heart. It is. Those things don't really scale or run themselves ever. Yeah. Like I joked with the management team, we've been lucky to keep most of our key players this whole time. We were joking, like, is year 8 any easier than year 1? And the answer is like marginally yes, but not really. Like these are super hands-on businesses and a lot of people working for us, but all of the benefits of the kind of what we want to be for the community, kind of the stuff you can't quantify with dollars, like networking events, places where people are having their graduation parties. I got married at River City Roll. Awesome. All these like special things for the community. Like you can't put a dollar on that stuff. And I was fortunate to be very hands-on with Scott's Addition. I was the president of the Greater Scott's Addition Association for 3 years, and we had all our board meetings there. And it's just been I just rolled off, but watching the neighborhood grow and getting to be a part of that story, seeing things like the Diamond District, Carmax Park, and all this stuff coming has been really cool, and getting to talk through the new ideas with the newer people and kind of pay it forward has been great, but it has, it's not all roses either. It was like,
Right.
I was spinning this story, and any of my investors, if they were listening, which I'm sure Henry or some of them are, it's like, dude, we thought we were paying our buy back in 3 years.
Right.
We thought this thing was going to just rip
Right.
out of the gates. It didn't, dude. It took a lot of work to scale, and everyone's finally paid back, which was like, that's the thing about raising money from friends and family. Terms are usually better. Pressure is usually a little less in terms of like time pressure, but like the emotional pressure of like having your friends and family's money at risk. The day we got all that back to everybody was like such a good feeling, because it was like, whew, all right.
Do you think those investors invested in you, or the concept, or the numbers, or what? Like, what attracted
I think the numbers were last. I think it was, most of the capital is Richmond based. So this is something that was very real in the community that they could see, touch, go to. I say that because it's very different than surf and the tech stuff that I'm doing now. But it was that. It was, hey, we believe in Rob. He's a hustler. He's going to figure out a way to get it done. And then, okay, if those things work and his idea works, then the return's going to actually be pretty good.
Right.
And, we've had some luckier breaks in terms of the value, like, zoning changes with the parking lot. And, that's like a funny one. Like, I joke now, one of our most valuable things is the parking lot.
Yeah.
And that was like my biggest fight with City Hall early on, because the zoning code back then was super archaic, and bowling alley is in this silo, right? Where it's like, I could just picture like some old dudes like smoking a cigar right in the code, like years and years ago, where it's like, oh, bowling, okay, 10 spots per lane. What? So they're telling me like, you gotta have 200 spots. And I was like, all right, we only have so much dirt. The building's gonna be this big. I was like, we only allow 6 bowlers per lane. So 10 per lane is ludicrous. Also, Mr. City Hall official, when you went bowling last with your family, did y'all take 5 different cars? Right. Or did you take one car?
Right.
So it's like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, this is a horrible rule. Right. But what it did was make us make a really big parking lot, which turned out being a huge asset.
Right.
And I was furious about it, and I was dead wrong. And, for anyone listening, like, people are frustrated with how narrow our spots are at River City Roll. They are the absolute minimum width allowed by code, because we had to fit as many as we could.
And it's packed every time I go.
Every single day. And I don't think our events business would be what it is today without that parking lot.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually one of the reasons like we might not go to other places, is because it's just inconvenient. Like, you don't want to drive around the block a number of times and try to find, especially in Scott's Edition, right? And so knowing that you could just pull up and park is like, and just have fun, is like, that's a big.
But now it's like, we're looking at it now, it's like zoning change, right? And there's no parking minimums.
Yeah.
So now it's like, we could build 12 stories of something
right
here now.
Yeah.
It would take a ludicrous number for me to close River City Roll, because of like the community, the personal, like all of the non-number things, because I just love the place so much. And I just like really couldn't imagine it not being around anymore. It's like so integral to my life. But we got a lucky break with that zoning refresh, and like, where the TOD1 zoning we got there now can go 12 stories, where certain parts of Scotts Edition you can only go 6. So like the air rights there, like stuff gets kind of interesting.
It's good to have that in your back pocket. Not that anything would ever happen to River City Roll, but like, decades from now, if you wanted to, and you still had that lease in effect, like, it's good that, and you already have the team in place.
And dude, look, we're self-aware enough that like no one's cool forever.
Yeah, for sure.
There's been a lot of really cool stuff. Stuff just has a life, right? And I would like to think River City Rolls and Invincible are going to go forever, but dude, I'm not dumb enough to believe that. And we work really hard on the networking, the events, the music to stay fresh, because the minute in our industry that you get lazy or complacent, you're cooked. Yeah.
I have a question about that later on, about maintaining a brand and culture in these different environments. But I want to touch on something first, because I want to introduce your concept of Cocodrillo.
Yeah.
And sort of what happened. So obviously you spun out River City Roll. By no means was that easy, but it ended up being a really good success. What was your idea with Cocodrillo, and then what happened with that?
So that was like an incredible lesson in you're not invincible, Rob. My wife and I had gone to Hilton Head on a little trip after our daughter Lily was born, and we had gone to a really cool Latin American concept down there, and I was like mega inspired by it. And I started thinking in my head, I'm like, man, Mexico restaurant on Horse Pin, like tacos with my dad on Tuesday, my sister and my dad still do it all the time. I was like, I love the food. I love Mexico. It's my favorite place outside of Richmond. And I was like, I want to do an upscale Latin American concept. And we get back. This is like in the midst of COVID. And we'd had a mishap. We had tried to take a River City Roll concept down at Tidewater in Norfolk. And the punchline there is that like there was way too many players in the land. And another one of Henry coming in. We're like, dude, this is dicey. We don't have like full control. Like this could get sideways fast. Thank God we passed. Rail yard roll is what we're going to call it. The rail yard development down in Norfolk, I think, still is like hasn't even happened.
Right.
So that was a lucky break. We missed one. That would have been that one might have been a knockout punch for me because we were going to put some real money to work. But then I was like, Cafe Caturo on Libby Grove, like right where I went to high school. I went to St. Stephen's Church. It was Luna Grove when I was a kid. It was Doc White's. My dad was here. It was like right in my wheelhouse. I was living on Grove Avenue right by Mary Mumford, and I was like, I want a place here. And we jumped in when we saw that the guy that was running that was leaving and moving back, I think to New Jersey or somewhere, kind of threw the keys in. And it was competitive. I won't say the other restaurateurs in town, but people really wanted it.
Great location.
It's
awesome
a great
building.
location.
Yeah.
But the inside of that place, holy moly. I was like breaking out in hives the first time I got into the kitchen and stuff. And I was shocked that I was like, I've eaten here a lot. And like, whoa. Now, granted, it had been closed for a while. So I mean, there was like a lot of stuff in there that I was like, whoa. Like, there's a lot of work needs to be done in there. And I say that because like everyone kind of thought it was like a turnkey thing. Like, dude, like jump in, you're going to be successful right away. Like this place, you can't miss location, all this stuff, right? Yeah. And, I was lucky enough to kind of win. Sometimes I wish I did, if I'm being honest. There was moments where I was like, this is the worst decision I've ever made.
Right.
But, so we get Cocodrillo team assembled. Chef Brad, who had come over from Lemaire's, best buddies, got Brandon, one of the best culinary talents I've ever been around, besides Brad. These are the type of guys where at some point I'll get Brad on Top Chef, the TV show on Bravo, because he's the type of guy where you can hand him a basket of stuff and it's going to be good every time. Doesn't matter what it is. You could give him like the most random stuff, and he's going to give you a plate of food where you're like, holy shit, that was incredible. And his boy Brandon was like the same. So it was like, all right. And Brandon was working at Shag Bark at the time. And I was like, yo, I had this idea. And he was like, dude, this sounds sweet. I was like, we're going to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're going to have this high-end Latin American. We're going to cook with this live fire. We found this just kick-ass live fire grill that we bought from a concept that we drove to Charlotte. The steakhouse up in Charlottesville failed, and like we saw it on Craigslist. We drove up there with a U-Haul the next day to get it. Me, the two chefs, a U-Haul, and one of our chef's dads, and we literally just straight up like manhandled this thing out of there. We didn't even know what we were going to do with it yet. Put it in the truck, like drove it back to Richmond. We had it in storage, and awesome. So we start kind of concepting Cocodrillo, and it was like the hardest thing is a name in the brand. And I know you're going to touch on that later, but like, so branding is so important. River City Roll just worked. And the way I got to River City Roll logo, I knew what the name was going to have the logo. And my buddy Gordon, who did that first drawing that I touched on earlier, had a friend who was a professor at the brand center. So at that time, money was like really scarce. And it was like we had to make every dollar last a while. Any startup does, right? Like same with Surf. So what I did was I took $1,000 cash, and this professor put up basically a flyer and was like, we're going to do a logo contest. And I went and I had the drawings of River City Roll. I just talked about what the vision was. And I said, here's $1,000. Whoever gives us the best logo, I'm going to give us money to. And we got like 37 submissions, and ended up being awesome. This kid, Billy Reno, just absolutely just nailed it. And, we got down to the 3 really good ones. We brought them all back in and said, hey, you're a finalist. Like, really work hard now. And Billy just crushed it. So I was like, okay, well, Billy's my guy. At this point, I'm shocked he still talks to me because he has some killer job for Apple in the Bay. And, like, he's just a monster at branding. He's so good at what he does. But, like, we had that kind of, like, I pulled on the heartstrings a little bit. Like, we had done, River City Roll was one of his first, like, real brands that came to life kind of thing. I was like, hey, you want to do it again with this idea? But we didn't have a name yet. And naming, because there's so many Mexican and Tex-Mex restaurants in the U.S., like, any kind of, like, name that popped up, someone's already used it.
Right.
Well, both of the chefs had come from Lemaire, and the big alligator crocodile up in the front. So that's how we kind of got to Cocodrillo. Nice. So then we went to Billy, got a cool logo done, Cocodrillo. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is because these are some of the weaknesses that I should have saw that I didn't see. This is when I was like thinking I was kind of bulletproof. And I was like, dude, it's going to work. It's just too good. The food's good. It's going to smash. River City Roll worked from day one. People got it. Customers understood it. They came. we started showing some weaknesses at Coco like month 3. Any new concept, their first 3 months are going to be incredible. You cannot forecast off of something new. It's impossible because everyone wants to try something once, especially in this town. Anything's going to rip. It could be the worst restaurant in town. It's going to be good for 3 months because that's how long it's going to take for everyone to try it. Where we saw weaknesses was like, I made a lot of mistakes there. You know, Cocodrilo, upscale Latin American, is not easy to digest as a consumer. It's not Mexican, but most consumers thinking Mexican, combo number 7, price point a little lower, margarita. We were doing like a high-end lobster enchilada and these specialty cocktails. And, oh, by the way, people were saying crocodilo and all these things. They didn't even know how to say it. And it was like, shit.
Yeah.
We're forcing something on the consumer that they don't get. And, oh, by the way, the inputs to all that stuff are so much more expensive.
Right.
So it was like, man.
And you started noticing that month 3, I guess, when volume
It started
wasn't
getting soft, right?
continuing.
Like when the cool new kid thing goes away, it's like you start to see what your kind of run
yeah.
rate really looks like. And it was like,
and you raised
okay.
$2 million for this?
Yeah,
And
that
so-
one was a lot less because we're just leasing that space.
Okay.
That's a 10-year, just really traditional lease, which I'll never do again. I'll never lease anything again.
Was the $2 million operating and equipment and build out and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we upfitted that place. I mean, that is a kick-ass kitchen. And you needed one for that concept because it's open kitchen. We're cooking with live fire. You could see the kitchen. You could see everybody cooking. So, like, it had to be good.
Right.
We then retrofitted, because you're cooking in front of everyone, you can't do your prep in there. So then we had to upfit the entire basement. That basement's the best prep kitchen in anywhere besides La Mer at the Jefferson Hotel.
Yeah.
All that stuff's really expensive. And dude, we didn't really spare an expense. That place looks sweet. Like Mexican hand-painted tiles. Like, man, we did it up. And we're paying for it. We paid for it for a little while. And
Did you had mentioned, I don't want to forget about, you mentioned you're never going to lease anything again.
No.
Did you feel the pain in that lease? Like, were potential landlord not working with you or
so
anything like that?
We were lucky. Now, one thing I didn't touch on with the River City Rural deal that was very critical to the success of that lease was it was either Henry or Matt. Someone told me, like, hey, whoever you're doing the ground lease from, you need to get them to invest in the operating business. Because then they're in the boat with you, and they're not just trying to take it away.
Right.
So we convinced Hargett and Rebke to invest in it. So they didn't view us as just a tenant. They were part of the operating company now, and that was fucking brilliant.
Yeah, they want you to win now.
And they're on your team.
Right.
And that was invaluable, especially when I stacked that against a Cocodrilo where the landlord does not care about the business.
Right.
They care about the rent being on time. And the flexibility also goes way, 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 way down in terms of like, it's not working. What do we do?
Right.
And I remember things were starting to get soft, and I was like, okay, let's try. We did this prefix special that kind of ripped like for 2 weeks, and I was like, all right. And this is when when things start to get a little sideways is when bad ideas start to compile, and you start like making errors on top of errors. And it was like, so then we were kind of chasing, and it was like, wow, the prefix thing worked for 2 weeks. So we're going to turn Cocodrilo into a prefix concept. $45, appetizer, main, dessert. Well, then it was like, oh, that's cool for a little, but people want variety. So, and they don't want to be locked into $45. Some people want to have a glass of wine and an appetizer and leave. And we were just made a bad decision. And
being reactive,
totally reactive. And then it was like, we'll give you some like slight breaking news, but we had a fire at Cocodrilo, and it could have been really bad. A lot of smoke damage. Luckily, the fire never got contained, but it was bad. And so we were like, all right, well, if there's any time to pivot, it's now.
Yeah.
And the capital stack at Cocodrilo was, let's say we have, for round numbers, 25 investors over there. We have 3.
Interesting.
At Bar West.
Yeah.
Now, Cocodrilo, now Bar West. And those are like kind of my most trusted folks. And it was like, hey, we got to do something different. I'm the face of this thing. I put my neck out. I love Cocodrilo more than anybody. I wanted this thing to work. I think the food we were doing was actually very cool, very different. Richmond just wasn't ready for it. And the near West End especially wasn't ready for it. Yep. Conejo opening at the same time, that was also a bad break. Yeah. And John Davenport was like a class act on that. And he's one of the people I respect most in the restaurant space in Richmond. He called me immediately once they found it, they knew what they were doing. Like, there was some crazy overlaps. One, Conejo, Cocodrillo, the names were similar.
I was wondering about
Start
that.
with C-O, end with O. Yeah. He and his wife picked the same freaking side plates and was like, dude, are you okay if we use them? Like, yo, man, like, sure. Like, the plates aren't going to be the make or break thing here. But it was like, man, that didn't help. Yeah. And they were a Mexican restaurant. Right. And they were what they were. And we had kind of gotten pigeonholed in this, like, we were competing with the institutions of Richmond for a special occasion, and that's not a place you want to be. Right. Like, people were like, oh, we're going to either go to Shagbark, La Mer, Azuro, Buckheads, or us. Dude, you better be nails if you're competing against those places. Yeah. And because our check averages were higher. So it was like, and we just weren't there. We weren't ready. I think the food quality was there. Right. I do. Like, I would put our food up against anybody, and that's not me being cocky. That's just like, I believe in Brandon and the food he's putting out. But it wasn't working. So I was like, what do we know? What are we really good at? What we do at River City Roll. Good food, done well, fair priced, cheap beers, great drinks, fun, place to hang.
Awesome experience. Yeah.
What are we not going to screw up again? A fucking name.
Right.
Bar West.
Yeah.
You can drink here. You can hang out here. This is not a fancy place. I never wanted to be a fancy place. I wear a t-shirt and a hat every day.
Yeah.
I don't want to put on nice clothes. I don't want to go to a white tablecloth place. I want a place where anyone can be comfortable with whatever they want to do. You want to come buy our steak frites and crack open a really nice bottle of wine? We have a ton of nice wine in the basement. You can spend as much as you want at Bar West and have a great day experience. Or if you want to come in and eat wings and drink a $2 Pilsner, you can do that too. And you can come in your golf clothes sweaty. You can come in nice for a date. You can come in with a happy hour on the front. We're like, dude, we're going back to the basics. We're giving people what they know, and we're not going to let them be confused by the name.
Right.
And it was that freaking simple.
And it worked perfectly.
And it's working.
Yeah, it's worked awesome because, I mean, at least speaking from my experience there, I go, it's busy, there's people there, and I can always pull up and just sit at the bar and have my whatever, usually it's a business meeting, like a one-on-one, just grabbing a drink, talking to a broker, an agent, or like another business person about whatever's going on. It's just an awesome environment to do it in.
But, when you stumble out of the gates in the food and beverage, you dig a hole. And, there are lots of days where it was like I said, I was like, man, I wish we never did this place. But now I think we've, the last 6 months, really, we've turned the corner. I think we have a chance to become that staple that River City Roll has become. The menu's killer. We unfortunately did lose Brandon because he didn't want to cook that type of food.
Right.
And, just like I said earlier, like time and place in life, he's younger, like late 20s, single dude. He can go do whatever he wants. Right. He now is cooking at a salmon lodge in Alaska, making badass food with grizzly bears walking by. So like he is absolutely crushing it. And our culinary team over at Bar West has really gotten the mix right to where you can come in and get a $35 entree if you want, but you also can come in and just have apps and drinks and leave. So, we've also kind of finally started to really establish our footing with the University of Richmond, which has been really important, especially for brunches and some of the kind of off nights, where, Tuesdays used to suck. And now it's like, who's fine drinking some brews on Tuesdays? College kids.
Yeah.
And so we started programming them a little more, the young family stuff. It was like, even River City Roll, I think back and laugh because when I opened River City Roll, I was single, I had no kids. So we were 21 and up after 5. Mm-hmm. And we only opened at 5 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Right.
So basically not family friendly except for Saturday and Sunday for like 6 hours. Right. I look at it now, it's like, dude, what was I thinking?
Because everyone's bringing strollers.
Dude, now it's like, I was like, what am I doing? Like, it's like, it took me and my friends starting to have kids be like, wait, this is dumb. Like, let's kick this back to 9. Like, dude, no young kids are coming before 9 anyway. So it's not like we're offensive.
Between 5 and 8 have kids and they need to get out.
It was like, dude, there's a lot of people that want to have a beer and let their kids bowl. Right. Now me included, that we were boxing out for like 2 years. But like, I think I say that and that we found a really good mix at Bar West now too of, you can have the college kids having a boozy brunch in one part of the space, and you can have the whole back patio dedicated to young families where, it really is real. Like, my kids grow up in restaurants, and I still get anxiety going to restaurants with my kids. You're like, hey, shh, babe, shh. But Bar West, we really want people to feel comfortable. It's like, dude, your kid can come and be loud as they want in the back patio at Bar West, and you're going to get a good food. And, our kids menu there, we do the 3 for $10 because it was like, my kids are pretty picky eaters, and it's like, I don't want to buy my daughter like expensive chicken tenders and fries over here, but my son only eat mac and cheese and fruit. It's like, dude, let's just give him 3 for $10. You can pick whatever you want. Yeah. And here's the 9 options. And, that's been good. And I think we're finally finding our footing. But again, it's like a one-off restaurant on a lease. Mm-hmm. You better nail it, because to pull a lot of financial value out of that thing long term, not owning the real estate's tough.
Yeah. Just riskier.
It's way
you just
riskier.
Have less to lean on.
And look, when we were in that money and doing the bank note, it was like, yeah, we'll lend to you, but you're personally guaranteeing this. And it's not just Rob personally guaranteeing anymore. It's everybody.
Did you have to raise more money at the rebrand and like have a conversation with those investors, or were you able to just kind of like make a smaller shift?
No. We had to put a little bit more capital in the business. And, that was one of those ones where, and this is like kind of a good pivot into surf, where it was like raising money when you have to have it
is much harder.
A lot harder than raising money when you don't have to have it.
With surf, it's a dating app.
Yep.
And it's a way different ball game raising money for a dating app than it is for like a brick and mortar business. What is the difference, and what's your experience with that?
Yeah, so that was a wild one where it was, I cut my teeth over, call it the last 10 years, marketing to mainly at River City Roll from at that time to 21 to 30-year-old people. Mm-hmm. I had a close friend who was an early investor in a dating app called Grindr and had a nice financial outcome. That app only caters to gay men, and it's based on a grid where all the other incumbent apps, not to bore you on the tech, are swipe-based one by one. At the time, he was single and was like, why is there not a hetero app that's built on a grid? It's better. He sank some resources into getting a development team and building kind of like the beta product, and he is way more of a numbers tech person. Like, we're a perfect match. He's all IQ, I'm all EQ. And he was like, hey, Rob, I need someone to run this and market this product. And that's how I got into it. We had self-funded, my partner, Jason, for kind of the first 18 months of that business to see if we had something, to see if there was like a product market fit, really. And it was tough, and we were fighting hard to get users. It's a competitive space, but once people got on the platform and got to see the grid, they kind of understood, like, whoa, this is a more efficient way to meet people. Being a real estate guy, it's kind of like, the easiest way to describe the tech is like Zillow for dating. Mm-hmm. You have all the inventory on a grid. We don't limit what you see. And you have filters and sort options where you can say wine, pickleball, golf, Richmond, Charlottesville, Virginia Beach, and then see what pops up. And all these people like those 3 things and live in these places, and then you can try to match it. That's awesome. Versus an algorithm controlling what you see one by one. Right. We got comfortable with the product, so then we were like, okay, we need some money to really pump marketing. Essentially, the beauty of tech is you can run pretty lean in terms of people, and the costs to start are way less. You're not buying buildings, you're not building things, you're not hiring. We got 130 people on payroll between River City Roll and Bar West. We have 5 at Surf, and we all live wherever we live. We got people in the UK, we got people in Serbia, we got people in Miami, you got people in New York, you got me here in Richmond. It's like, what? But there's no cost to any of that. There's no office. Yeah. Like, we have Zoom meetings. Like, the world is so different now. Right. So we were like, all right, we need to get to 100,000 users. We think we can get them for around $20. And we were kind of, we had some more real data behind this, but it was really almost back envelope math. Where it was like, we need to raise $2 million to try to have a chance. Get to 100,000 users.
It's all like advertising mostly. I mean, it's maybe
high funnel ads, throwing parties, social marketing, like social media marketing, and throwing splashy parties in the Hamptons in New York. Early on in that business, we're like, if we win New York City, trend sets, we win. We've totally shifted now, and I'll get to that here in a second. But so we were like, all right, we need to raise $2 million to get to 100,000 users. We get to 100,000 users, we think the business can be worth X. And the other thing about tech, it's like, and I've been lucky to tie it back to Hardy's situation. Now at this moment in time, last year, my best buddy is a head coach of the Utah Jazz. The owner of the Utah Jazz is a tech god. Sold Qualtrics for $8 billion. He built that business in his garage with his brothers and his dad, and has been an incredible mentor on tech, which I knew nothing about. And the whole thing was like, I don't really need to know anything about the tech because our developer is incredible, and once we get people on the product, they love it. So like, you held a gun to my head and said, how's it built? I couldn't tell you. Full discretion. Yeah. But I had some people saying like, hey, this is a really different ballgame because numbers in tech, if you hit what you project,
valuations are
get
nuts.
stupid.
Yeah, insane.
It paralyzingly stupid. Where it's like, if we get 100,000 users and then 100,000 turns into a million, then a million turns into 2 million, we're going to make $100 million. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. So it was like the Utah connections have been incredible with a lot of tech folks out there. You know, like I mentioned to you offline, Entrada, some of these guys that have done all this stuff and built products and built real stuff and built real valuations, real companies, were kind of giving me some help because of the work we were doing with the ALS and the Will Hardy Foundation and them sponsoring the Jazz and the Jazz supporting the foundation and all this ecosystem that we'd worked really hard about a disease we're passionate about. There was some really good bleed over into just like me growing my mentor network, which is something that I think is a strength of mine and something I really hope my kids do. It's like, I always want to be the dumbest person in the room. I always want to be around people that are better than me. I always want to learn. And I always just want to just like take in as much guidance as possible because I think as fast moving as the world is now with tech, I think some people are losing focus on that and think they can just type into ChatGPT or Claude or all these things and just figure shit out. No, dude, you still have to talk to real people that have lived this stuff to really learn and get the proper guidance. So we kind of had all that going, and it was like, all right, let's get $2 million at a $20 million valuation. All these things are so different than anything I've ever done before. No banks are touching this, by the way. And talk to some folks in the Bay Area. It's like, now I'm having real conversations like, do we go like a VC route? Do we bring in institutional capital? Or do we go this friends and family route that I'd only really ever done? I was like, oh, easy button. Let's just like, let's play big leagues. Let's get some VC money.
Right.
Everyone's like, no, dude, you're thinking about this so wrong. Friends and family. Pressure's lower. They're going to believe in you a little more. Blah, 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 blah. Everything's better when you can do it
Probably
that way.
less controlling.
Less
like,
controlling,
let you do your thing.
less timelines, less like time pressure is really a lot of it where it's like, dude, monetize, grow.
It's been 1 quarter. And
Yeah,
you're not
exactly. Oh, Rob, you're out. And we're putting somebody else in. You keep your little sweat equity, but bye. Here comes a new guy. Like I was scared of that. Still am. So we kind of put together a deck, very different than all the other decks we'd done, and kind of distributed out to a little bit different of a network. But obviously, like my key mentors, obviously like give first look at everything. This is another one of these like, all right, I'm going to put some more chips back on the table on the Rob bet. And oh, by the way, the Rob bet is like, this one is a little different outcome than the last couple. Real estate is steady and a little more predictable, obviously still very risky, but like, you're hitting a lot of singles. If you hit a ton of singles, things build up, right? These are like home run swings we're taking now.
For sure.
So we got that raise done, and that was last year. We thought that was going to be the only raise we did. And no, dude, we are working on Series B right now, and we'll go back to market. And that was another one where we made a lot of mistakes, a lot of learnings. Mistakes in this game, like the restaurants were real errors. Like I made mistakes on stuff that I shouldn't have made. I grew up in the West End. I knew what people wanted, and I tried to force something on them that they didn't know. That was a Rob Long error. I'll own that. The surf was our discovery period was a lot more expensive than we thought it was going to be because we were competing with these behemoths of the space.
Of course.
Hinge, Raya, Bumble, household names, Tinder. Like people are making memes with these names. These are like, people know this stuff. And here we're little old surf known as who we are, and we're in New York City. Trying to win a 30-year-old investment banker in New York is expensive. They want the coolest of the cool. They don't care about a free beer. Then when we were going the university route where you buy a kid a high noon at UVA, they'll do anything you want, but like you don't really care about that user because they're going to get off really quick. We got a good break. We worked hard. We now are the official dating app of High Rocks, like the fastest growing fitness community in the world.
Awesome.
And that's given us awesome. real life. And that partnership launched in January. All of our trends are looking really, really good now. We're cranking towards our goal of user count. We have a real fit in the market now. Some of the trends in the world are a little scary as a bar owner. As a human, I think they're the right ones. Like health and wellness has never been hotter. And I think like people caring about what they put in their bodies, how they work out, like lifestyle decisions are all great for humanity.
Right.
Like the days of yore where it's like, I come home, I drink a bourbon or a glass of wine and I play golf, are gone. It's like you have people that are, watching what they eat.
Yeah.
They're not drinking as much. Drinking trends are bad. I think luckily if my whole life was like 50 bars and my goal in life was just to be like a bar mogul, I would be terrified. I think that like there's still certain pockets of the world and that, like River City Roll, I think no matter what the trends do, it can be all right. There's always going to be a couple thousand people that want to jam and drink a beer. Right. But our mocktail sales are up, our NA beer sales are up, all these things that are good. So we kind of took some of the learnings from the bars and we're like, well, let's kind of think about this with the app and let's just own kind of the fitness wellness space. And if we become known as the dating platform that's bringing fitness-minded, health-conscious individuals together, then I think we can win a segment. And when you're competing now, like I'd never competed outside of Richmond. I know Richmond. Right. I lived here basically my whole life. And now it's like, well, we're competing in the U.S. and now we're about to go to Canada, the U.K., Australia. It's like, hold up. All you need to really win at that scale is like one tiny little pillar of the market. And High Rocks was a big break. That community is incredible, very motivating to be around. I never thought I would enter myself in fitness competition, but we're going to race, Coach Hardy and I are going to race the Salt Lake High Rocks in September to kick off our ALS fundraiser, which I'm going to start training out here pretty soon because I'm not ready. But Surf has done a really good job of becoming the go-to platform for folks in this space, and now it's starting to bleed over into things like CrossFit and other kind of more kind of commonly known. But High Rocks, I think, I've gotten lucky to interact with the founders of that from Europe, and they're ex-Olympians. They think that it has a chance to be an Olympic sport one day. I believe in them. They think they're going to get to 300 million athletes worldwide. If we take a small sliver of that on the platform, we win. So we feel really good about where we're going there. And it's been really fun seeing the evolution of that happen.
Right.
And this next raise might be, we're going to fight like a dog to stay in the friends and family, but it might be the first time we dip the toes into institutional capital. So that, it makes me a little nervous, but again, another learning experience. Hopefully I don't have to have it, honestly. Yeah. I think we can get there without it, but the closest to like kind of the quote unquote big leagues, if you will.
Well, I think one thing that you're clearly good at is getting the right team around you. Like you have a good head on your shoulders, but getting the right team around you. So if you don't have experience going more into the institutional space, which you were an investment banker, like you've been around those types of people, then people who do, and you can talk to people. Like you're surrounded by successful people. You put yourself in that situation. I think that is one of the most important things about like finding success in all these different lanes. My background historically has always been like growing community businesses, right? Even before real estate. And so I'm very comfortable with that. But I have a buddy who went to Yale and he went to Harvard, and then he like does IT stuff now and like has built and sold apps and stuff like that. And I'm like, I have no idea what he's doing or how to do it or how to like, he came to like an entrepreneur group and was like, man, I don't know how to get more users. Do you guys have any ideas? And everyone in that room was just like, sorry, man, like we're not really in this space. It's an entirely different thought process, entirely different game. And the way, like, I know several business owners where they constantly are raising money, like different series and rounds and all these things. And that's their business. They run essentially at negative profit, and they always hope to one day essentially be profitable. But the idea for all the investors that are investing is the exit, right? Yep. And so those things are very interesting concepts to me, but something where if I were ever involved in them, I need a good team around me to help me out. And it sounds like that's exactly what you know to do is to build the right team and then execute and make something happen. And so I'm confident you'll do something like that with Surf.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it goes back to sports like we talked about early, and the teamwork thing is something that's been so ingrained in me as a person my whole life. And you're only as good as your teammates, and no one can succeed in this world by themselves anymore.
Right.
And you got to put smarter people around you, and you have to trust them too. And you can't just put good people around you and then try to micromanage. I was bad at that early on. I wanted to control everything at River City Roll. If you talk to Ben Quaid, my director of operations now between both restaurants, like our relationship is so much healthier now. And it's like, there were times where I held the business back because I wanted to do everything.
100%.
It's like you got to trust your teammates and let them go and just drop the reins and trust the process. It's like, hey, we have our weekly meetings. You vetted these people. You trust them. You know they're smart. Get out of their way.
what opened your eyes to that? Was it a specific conversation, or was it you weren't able to grow until you made that decision to delegate?
It's like I've always thought about that. I should ask Ben, like, when was a moment when I became like a better boss and like kind of letting people do what they wanted to do? That's like a good self-reflection point for me now, but it happened, probably year 2, 3 at River City Roll.
There's probably some constraint where you were like,
no, it's probably like right after COVID, where it was like, that was such a emotional roller coaster where it was like, whoa, I got to fire a lot of people, not because I want to, because I know that the state's about to close and I want them to be able to file for unemployment first and start, whatever. So challenging. And we kept some of the core. We tried to keep as many people employed as possible. We had like a co-op grocery store going out of River City Roll. We had a few things that we tried to do, and we brought live music back as fast as we could and to support local musicians and stuff. And I think it was like that whole process where it was like, dude, you can't figure this whole thing out by yourself. And look around, trust your team, fall on them. You don't have enough energy or time in the day.
Right.
I think that was really like a huge break for me, because like now with surf, it's like I'm surrounded by people who are way smarter than me, and I'm pretty good at seeing the board. I'm pretty good at coaching. I think I spend a lot of time away from my kids and my family to coach, but there's so much I get from it that bleeds over into my professional life and my mental health, where I'm on the field with the Freeman boys, and it's like I don't think about payroll. I don't think about this. I'm refreshed by young minds that are just excited. Coach, I got into UVA. Coach, I took my girlfriend to Bar West. Like all these, just like, man, I love this. But it also keeps me really. I'm getting older now, right? 38. Like we're marketing the app to people a little bit, good bit younger than me, and like being around the bars and the team and the kids, like it keeps me pretty young, or at least aware of what's going on. And it also just reminds me every day, trust your teammates. Because I'm barking at these high school kids like, talk to your teammates, trust your teammates, be there for your teammates. So it's like a daily reminder. It's not just I read it in a book and I need to trust my team because I read it in How to Be Successful 10 Steps BS. It's like, no, hey, Rob, like practice what you preach a little bit.
So you talk about the Will Hardy Foundation. You're coaching high school lacrosse, kind of giving back to the community that way. You're creating some awesome establishments for the community to benefit from. When you think about like all that you're building, what do you think about when you hear the word legacy, or what you're trying to, because you have young kids, you have a wife, like what do you think should come from all this from you personally?
Yeah, I mean, that's one I think about a lot. And, I look at the kids and you see AI and you see all these things changing, and it's like, man, maybe like the brick and mortar restaurants and the community spaces are the legacy, and maybe this is something that like, worst case scenario, my kids can always fall back on it and jump into this. My wife would probably say differently. It's like, hey, let them be what they want to be. And, my parents never forced me down a career path. It's not like I'm going to be like, Lily, you are going to be the GM at River City Roll when you grow up. But I do think me as a person, from being in the restaurant world, I have become a much better person. My eyes have been open to a lot of stuff that I wasn't previously exposed to. Some good, some bad, but all real life stuff that it will be mandatory for my kids to work in the restaurants. I was a server every summer at Bubba's Seafood at the beach. That was formative. You got to learn how to deal with some pretty tough stuff, people that are jerks, being around people that might not have the same upbringing as you, people that are, line cooks are very different than bartenders, and a lot of personalities. And I think it makes you a better person. You see the world a little bigger, and it's good to see some of the tough stuff. We have people I love that work for us that have some really challenging upbringings and fight really hard and have a really different life. And I think it's important to expose myself, now, and my kids to that. But yeah, I think Richmond is so important to me. The foundation is also super important. So if surf does what I want it to do, and there's a successful exit, and like the day-to-day grind of, making sure I can provide for my kids is kind of some of that pressure's lifted a little bit. It's like, I'll just dive headfirst into growing community, coaching the restaurants and the foundation. And the foundation is something that is new. It's 3 years old. We do one annual event. We're taking it to 2 next year. I think like global legacy, if that could be the biggest thing, right? Like ALS is a horrible disease, 100% death rate. You get ALS, you're dying. It's that simple. It's terrible, and it's a horrible disease to die from. And my closest childhood friend, Coach Hardy's dad, died from it, my old boss. And then my college roommate, John Carrington, who's on the board with me at Surf and like one of my biggest peer mentors, dad also passed away from ALS. So it's like a disease really close to me. Like 2 of my best friends lost their dads to it. And we're doing a really cool event next year, the Show Love Summit, where we're bringing the 50 smartest neurologists in the world to Utah, and we're going to put them in a room. And this goes back to like the power of sports and team. And it was a wild idea that we had, and we went to Mass General in Boston, and I talked to the head of neuro there and was like, I have a crazy idea. I know nothing about neuroscience. I want to put the 50 smartest people in the room. I don't care if it's ALS, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, whatever. Let's put all y'all in a room and just see what happens. And we're going to do it next summer. And alongside of it, we're going to do a leadership conference where William Coach Hardy is going to have hopefully Dan Quinn from the Commanders, Ed Bashan from Delta, John Shire from Duke, a handful of leaders in sports and business, do a leadership conference with, sell tickets, come, have a panel going on in one room, have the doctors in the other, and then put them all together at night. And just see what happens, right? And it's like, hey, let's just put a bunch of really smart, successful people together. At worst, we're going to raise a bunch of money for the research.
Right.
At best, there's a protein that is shared. I've gotten a little smarter on the diseases working with it, but it's like maybe there's a protein that Parkinson's is working with and the ALS doctor working with, and that somehow their notes shared. It's like, wait a second, we cured one of these things. Would be like, wow, right? Like if we could facilitate that, that would be a legacy I'd be blessed to be a part of. And that's a platform where, Coach Hardy is really good at understanding, like we've always wanted to do this. And again, timing's everything. It was like, if we had done it when he was an assistant coach with the Spurs, might not have worked. If we had done it when he was the lead assistant with Boston, might not have worked. It was like, but we get to Utah, he's the head coach now, things get different. And then he's got an owner who is so supportive, and he overhears us talking about it, and he's the go, go, go guy. And he's like, no, let's just start it now. Here, we'll just do it at my golf course in Provo, Utah, and here's a list of all the Jazz sponsors. Like, call them all. If they don't want to do it, I'll give you another list of people to call. And it was like, yes. It was like, support the team, support research for a terrible disease. Like, the power of sports is crazy, especially pro sports. People are irrational about it in a good way, where it's like, D Wade was incredible. He's a part owner of the Jazz, and it was like, hey, D-Wade, can we auction you off for golf? Like, you're D-Wade. Like, if you're known by your nickname, you're there. You're the guy. And he was like, dude, whatever to raise money for disease, like, I'm all in, man. Like, show love, appreciate what y'all are doing for the disease. Like, we auctioned him off for somebody paid, $50,000 to play 18 holes with him. And all that money went to families affected by, like, we bought wheelchairs and ramps and shower stuff for people that were sick. And it was like, that stuff doesn't happen without sports and the power of all that stuff bringing it together. So we're hoping to take the power of sports and then smart medicine and like smash them together and see what happens.
Do you have a name of that summit?
That's going to be called the Show Love Summit. And the Show Love came from Coach Hardy breaks down every huddle with the team as Show Love. And it's a little more fun branding than Will Hardy Foundation. So it's the Show Love Shootout is our annual golf tournament fundraiser. Like a cool pro-am. You have 22 teams. Every team has a member of the Jazz or a Jazz legend on it. A cool party the night before. And then now we're going to add this summit that's going to be leadership and research based.
That's awesome, man. That's incredible. I wanted to ask one main final question is if someone wanted to follow in your footsteps, whether that's going off and being a business owner or going off and being an investor in real estate, what do you think is the first action they should take? If they just want to get started, like what is some of the most important thing to do in your opinion?
Do it, but be prepared. There's no better time than now, right? And that's not in a cliche way, because there's millions of ideas that never got brought to fruition because someone was scared to pull the trigger. Nowadays, the resources to like vet an idea are greater than they've ever been. So I've had tons of wild ideas that I thought would be great, and then you put them into some AI stuff, and they're like, someone's already doing it. Okay, fine, on to the next one. So like, do some initial diligence, and don't be scared to take the plunge, and don't be scared to ask for help, because that's the only way you're going to get it done. And the other thing is, before you even get to that moment, don't box yourself in. And this is anytime I get to talk to young people, you don't have to be, I say it all the time, banker, lawyer, doctor. Like, you don't have to do that, man. The one thing I learned that was so crazy, like throughout the River City Roll process, and money's not everything. Money helps a lot of stuff though. There are a lot of people making a boatload of money that didn't go to college and don't do a job that you've ever heard of.
Right.
And you just don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
The guy pouring the concrete, the guy knocking the building down, the guy doing XYZ. Like there's so much shit going on that makes a lot more money than doctors and bankers.
There was a buddy of mine told me a story about he met a contractor on site of this commercial property. The contractor's driving like a 20-year-old truck. It's got rust holes in it and stuff like that. He gets out, he's shaggy, has holes in his shirt and stuff like that. When he gets out, a piece of paper falls on the ground. He reaches down, or my buddy sees it, so he bends down to pick up the paper for him and hand it back to him. It's a check for like $250,000 made out to this contractor. He hands it. He kind of doesn't mean to really look at it, but he looks at it when he hands it to him and sees that. The contractor gets the check and just goes, throws it in his truck with all the other trash in there, shuts the door, and just keeps walking.
Yeah, he just probably has a stack of those. Yeah. No, for sure. And it was like, I remember like seeing the same thing. It's like, and again, back to like you said, like be careful of the guy in the t-shirt, like appearance and everything, man. It's like, there's a lot of dudes that are walking by in a pair of dirty jeans and some boots that have a couple commas to their name. And I've also found that those are the people that are really supportive of the next generation of like
1,000%.
And are willing to take a bet on somebody else too. And that's like another like key thing is like find other people that have built their own thing because they get it, right? And work with people that have done it. Doesn't have to be exactly what you're doing, but they're the ones that understand the grind. Right. They're the ones that understand the pressure. They're the ones that have the real insights. And it's also not for everybody too, and there's a lot to be said once you have a family and decision making starts changing to a very stable career. And I'm the opposite of stable. And I think like who you're with in life really matters, whether that's family, your spouse, whatever. It's like, I'm lucky with Kate to have like a really, really brilliant attorney, a corporate attorney as a wife who has a very stable career that allows me to take some risks. Right. And I know that I'm lucky for that. Like I can swing for the fences now and not worry about feeding the kids. And that wasn't the case 8 years ago.
Right. How can people find you? I mean, you have Bar West, you have River City Roll, you have Surf Dating. There's obviously the Will Hardy Foundation that you're a big part of. What's the best way for people to either kind of get in touch with you or work with you in some capacity?
Yeah. When I'm in town, if you just want to drop in, I work in the mornings at Bar West, the afternoons at River City Roll. And Rob at rivercityroll.com is kind of like the general email that's the easiest to get me on. That one's the one that's like on my phone and always present. But yeah, like I'm always here. I love chatting with young folks that want to spitball ideas, like something like kind of workshopping ideas really energizes me, and I really enjoy it. And always open for chat.
Awesome. Any final thoughts?
No, just thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and chat.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Your story is incredible. It's awesome, and it resonates. I know this is a real estate podcast primarily, but a lot of it is mindset and journey and wins and losses and taking risk and raising capital and overcoming failure, which you've had to do all that, right? And it's incredible what you've been able to do. And I think earlier you mentioned that you have, 130 plus people on your payroll, and some of them didn't have the best upbringing and had, as we know as business owners, you run into a lot of challenges that you've never had to deal with that your employees are dealing with, and you need to help them through those challenges as a good business owner, as a good employer, right? To make sure that you are doing everything you can within reason to support them as well and their families, right? And so you find yourself in all these different positions, but people like you, again, they may not have had the best upbringing or the best experiences and may have different challenges, but you are the person that's taking the risk to help them be in a better position. And you're creating the communities and the culture for them to be in a better position. And they get to see your leadership by example, your managers, your GMs, their leadership by example, and get to see what it's like to be around successful and good people with a better mindset. So that starts with you taking that risk and having these crazy ideas as a kid and thinking you're invincible and can just go, start up bowling alleys and bars and stuff like that. But I appreciate that. And thank you so much for sharing your journey and coming on the podcast.
Dude, absolutely.